Love it. All right. So cool. Well, thank you for coming on this training. I know there's a lot of people that ask about this because a lot of people want to be able to grow and hire and scale their operation. And so you are one of my most recent hires, not the most recent, but one of them. But also you have very quickly elevated yourself within the company into a, possibility of being a little COO type is what I like to say. But let's talk about this because I get a lot of questions, when people are either listening to my podcast or watching YouTube channels or whatever, or maybe in my group, they'll ask like, who should I hire? What should I pay them? Where do you find them? All those type of questions. So I actually thought this would be a really cool training for you to actually jump on with me and actually just have a conversation, right? And, let's just go through, where I found you, my hiring style. I'm sure that, we'll have some follow-up questions from this, but I really wanted to, I think this will be a good way to do this. So, first of all, I'm a big advocate of hiring through my own network. Okay. And so a lot of people will ask, where do you hire from? What kind of ads do you put up? But, I found you through actually one of my high-level students who happens to be your dad. Right. And so, this is how my hiring style. Now, some people are going to agree with this. Some people aren't. Some people are going to want, the whole corporate, hiring funnel. I'm not that kind of guy. I really incentivize to hire from within and or hire like within your circle of influence, whether that's social media, colleagues, friends, family. Try to stay away from family and maybe even a little bit try to stay away from friends initially. But let's just talk about how I found you, what you were doing when I hired you, and let's kind of walk through that and paint the picture of where you were at, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So when you basically, I don't really know how the process worked with my dad or whatnot. I know there was, you were looking for somebody and my dad knew I was looking for another job, or at least something that would kind of fit in part-time, since I was already working a full-time job, but then also had a part-time job that was really, really time consuming. And just, he knew I needed something different. And so he connected you and I together. But yeah, essentially, I was in a full-time management position with a gym. So anything from daily operations to financials to business plan to all of that, that was my daily job. But then I also did a weekend job on the side. So
well, yeah. And so I think it's important for people to understand my personality is going to be heavily based around people. So when I hire, I base around the person. I don't base around the resume, but I also base my hire around my need. And so what I'll tell you guys is I was in a position where I knew I was going to let someone go in my company and I needed to fill that, but I didn't want to do that knee-jerk reaction. Right. And so when my student, your father, basically, because I was talking to him about, hey, I think I'm going to let this person go, not really the right fit. And he kind of said, hey, my daughter's awesome. She's a rock star. She has a full-time job. And I'm like, oh man, full-time job, but let's just have a conversation with her. Right. Because I'm always open to having a conversation. Doesn't mean it always has to be the right time. Right. And so ultimately, what I did is I said, yes, let's have a quick conversation. You kind of gave me a rundown of what you were doing. You had a full-time job, but you wanted a little extra money. So you went and kind of got a side hustle for a weekend job. And I kind of said, okay, well, based around the edification your dad gave you and my personality of, I would rather hire from a reference. Okay. So the highest, or for me, the best use or best way to hire would be to have a friend, family member, colleague, student, refer me someone that they know and trust, because I then get to remove some of the questions of hey, is this person good work ethic? Do they know what they're doing? Are they smart enough? Do they care? And so that immediately had me make, kind of the conversation with you go from, I don't really know what we do to then we really quickly kind of fast forwarded. Our second conversation was hey, if I could replace your side income, would you be willing to? Right.
Yeah. So I think our initial conversation was just, is this going to be a good fit for the both of us? And then the second conversation was like, hey, what if, like you said, will this replace what you can do and give you a little bit more sanity back in your life? And then essentially that progressed into like 2 hours of work a day type part-time gig before I went into my other job. And then that just kind of grew from there at that point.
And so when I tell people what I prefer for hiring, first of all, I believe everyone should be making roughly $250,000 a year in your own pocket before you start hiring. One thing that I think happens too often is people get caught up in the, I want to grow, I want to scale, I want the look of that for social media. And so they do this, but then they remove their profitability. So I'm not in favor of that. And so I would always tell anyone, until you can put $250,000 in your pocket and or you are at your max threshold of responsibilities, like you are dropping the ball on enough stuff that you need somebody, my first hire would be like an assistant type, which initially was what Casey was doing, right? I mean, you were assistant, effectively like kind of just doing the stuff that I needed somebody to do. And I would kind of just hand you that kind of stuff off, any given day that you'd have a couple hours a day to do.
Yep. Yeah. And it was random stuff, like anything from finding a handyman to filling out documents to creating documents to splitting lists to like contacting people.
Filling out like a W-9 for me, right? Like
yeah.
I needed to get a W-9 filled out. So I'm like, hey, can you fill this out with the information and then I'll sign it? Like, that's literally the stuff I was having her do. And I actually still have her do today, by the way, just so it's clear. But that's because that actually takes too much time. Like, I know it's not difficult, but if that takes me 10, 15 minutes just between getting it done, getting it filled out, getting it signed, versus me giving her that 10 to 15 minute project, which is super simple still, that's 10 to 15 minutes that I can be focusing on the things I need to focus on, right? And so I would encourage any of you that if you are at a place of like, I really am making decent money, I need to get some of this stuff off my plate, I would hire an assistant type first. Now, let me clarify that. I didn't hire her to be a 2 hours a day assistant. I hired her with the hopes and intention at some point I can get her to quit her full-time job and come over and work with us, right? So I didn't hire for that. Now that's because I didn't want to hire for that. If you want to hire someone for 2 hours a day and that's what you need and that's what you want, then awesome. But be very clear of what you're trying to hire for. What are the roles and what are the items that they're going to be executing on? And then make sure that they understand that. The hurdle here is there's not enough good leaders in our space or in business in general. So there's not that open communication to say, hey, and you and I had this conversation, hey, let's get you started to get this side hustle removed. I'd rather use, I will be the side hustle for you. I will replace that side hustle income. But I'll be honest, like, I really would like you to be able to be with us full time. And at the point you were like, well, I can't just quit my job necessarily. And I was like, well, I haven't quit, I haven't let this person go yet. But there was that open dialogue, which was really, really important.
Yes. And I mean, eventually I made it easy on you. You didn't really have to like convince me too much because I'd already seen a bunch of the things going on in the background. I kind of already had an idea of what the lay of the land was. And then I actually got laid off from my job. So it was just hey, Justin, I have an abundance of hours now. So instead of 2, do you maybe want to up that to like 8? Like, that would be great.
Right.
And like, you gave me the assurance of, hey, yes, like we've been talking about this. Let's like, don't start looking for a full-time job. I want you in a full-time position. Just like, got to figure out some pieces in the puzzle. Let's like check back in a couple days. And I'm like, sounds great. So yeah.
And so the reason why I bring that to light is the leadership component, because I genuinely hire, not just giving them the vision, but I also want them to know that I want to align myself with the things that they care about, right? And so whether that is financially or a lifestyle or working remotely or whatever those things are, I wanted that communication to be open, right? So it was very quickly I start talking about finances. So I need to know, like if she's making 20 grand a month at her current employer, I'm not hiring. I can't get there, right? So now she's going to take this massive sacrifice financially, right? And that won't work for her. And then that won't work for me. So I want to make sure we're transparent here. And so we had that dialogue about finances and making sure I can get her to a place that she feels comfortable to make that move. Right now, she didn't have to make the move because, you know, basically she was, were you laid off?
Yeah.
Laid off. But, you know, she had the opportunity, but I wanted to make sure if I was going to hire her full time, I could at least make her whole and pay her bills and continue her lifestyle. Right. Yeah. So that was really important because then that security that I can give her allows her to feel free to go out and do and to really jump into this business full time. Right. And so that transition happens organically. Why I say that is people too often knee-jerk reaction hire. They try to fill someone's plate. They're doing it wrong. Like to me, like everything happens in the right sequence. It all happens at the right time. We as drivers and entrepreneurs, we tend to want it right now. By the way, everyone does, right? Microwave society, everyone wants results right now. But as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you want that result even more because it's connected to money. Well, I'm of the opinion, and it's been working for me so far for 14 years, is you let things play out the way they're supposed to be, right? Like I could have hired her right out of the bat and she would have tried to quit her job and all these other things. But because I took my time and allowed this all to develop, it timed out where literally the lady that I was kind of letting go, she only had 2 weeks left. Casey got laid off. I knew I could financially get her to a place of comfort. And I said, hey, this is perfect. Because then she was replacing this lady and that lady was able to help train her. Right. So it really kind of full circle. The timing of it all worked because I was patient, not because I was forcing it because I needed her. By the way, I did need her, but I didn't force it. I allowed it to play out the right way. And so, which was really important. And so the thing that I want people to take, there's a lot that I want you to take away with them. So I want you to rewatch this, right? Over and over again, because there's some points that I think are really important. And we're not even done with this, but I think already we've talked a lot about, you know, just being patient as an entrepreneur, aligning yourself with the right person at the right time. I take it from Jim Collins, Good to Great, like find the right person and you'll create a seat on the bus. Don't have a bus on the seat and then just hire someone to get it filled, right? Hire the right person. So I'm a big person, if that makes any sense, right? And so I already knew, because point number one is I hired off of a referral. I prefer to hire off a referral. I can't do it all the time. I have 3 sales guys in my office right now that were not referral based per se. They were referrals of other referrals, right? And so essentially, like Jared, for example, was a referral of Jake. Jake was a referral from actually someone I do know. So there's like a lineage of referrals. Yeah. And it's because no one's going to refer someone who they don't believe in. They don't want egg on their face. They don't want me to call them and say, I can't believe you referred this person. They're terrible, right? So that's point number one. Try to leverage referrals first. Point number 2 is take your time. Have the conversations, feel out the person, and then don't force the issue, right? Like Casey, you weren't even, if I offered you the job right away, you wouldn't have been able to take it.
Right. Yep. It probably honestly would have overwhelmed me a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And so, you know, that's point number 2 is take your time through this process. Point number 3, which I glossed over quickly, but don't hire someone till you're financially ready to hire. I find too many business owners and entrepreneurs and us investors, we want the Casey type so bad because we don't want to do it ourselves. Like, for example, I didn't want to split the spreadsheet. I didn't want to write the W-9. I didn't want to do all those things, the little tasks that she was doing for me that, you know, too often people hire because they don't want to do it anymore. I got it. I respect it. But if you can't put enough money in your own pockets to live a very nice lifestyle, then you shouldn't be, you know, hiring a Casey type yet. Make sure you're profitable first. And then, you know, where I want to take our conversation, Casey, is just like that transition to, you know, you're hiring, you're dealing with very menial tasks. Important, they had to get done, but menial, right? Yeah. And then into like kind of where you're at today and how I handled that transition. And I want people to hear it from your perspective of that transition from like, hey, can you split up the spreadsheet of phone numbers, or can you, you know, throw this buyer into our buyer email service, those little things
Yep.
to now where you're at, like literally effectively running the whole co-wholesale model, adding buyers to the list every day, finding contractors for me in Oklahoma, walking properties, doing videos, like doing all of our TC work, all here in Arizona and in Oklahoma. You're about to take on Milwaukee, like, and this is, by the way, just so we're clear on, as we're doing this, you've only been with me full time for how long?
Less than 2 months.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So why don't, what I want people to hear is like your perspective of it. Cause I get on here and I teach and I train, but that's my perspective. So let's talk about your perspective of like, how did you make that transition? Why it worked for you?
Yeah. I mean, one, worked, needed a job done. That's
right. Pay my bills.
Yeah.
Check.
Need to keep doing that. Need to function as an adult. The second piece I think to like point out is that I knew you cared about me, and like having those conversations of like money and can you like afford to come on? Like, is this going to work out for both of us? Like, especially you, like, I want to make sure you're taken care of. Like, that meant the world to me. And that's what like kept me kind of on, I guess, the hook of just like, I know he's got my back. Like that meant more to me than like any of the job duties that I was doing. And then as like things kind of happened the way they normally do in just life, like opportunities were placed at the right time, people were moving out, people were moving in, like it just was timed perfectly. And now like, I mean, all the things like overseeing buyers and having those conversations with them about properties and being knowledgeable about the properties and making those conversations with them an experience, because it's really like short. I mean, I could have someone call me for 15 seconds, but they may never call me again based on that conversation. So like, it's got to be unique. It's got to be special when I'm talking to those types of people. Same thing with like general contractors. Like, I don't want to blow those relationships, because down the road I may need whatever happening. I need their help. So, what was the original question?
Well, just kind of like all the things that you do day to day now, right? So you're tasked with reaching out to the other investors here in Phoenix to line up deals for us to sell for them, right?
Yes.
You're tasked with reaching out to agents each and every day via text, so we can add more agents to our buyers list each and every day. You're tasked with every single one of our TC paperwork transactions. So you have to manage all of the like, how many deals are we closing next week?
6, now 7.
7 deals that we're closing next week. Let's go.
I know.
Right? 7 deals next week that you have to manage all the transaction, all the paperwork, the title, the escrow, the sellers, the buyers.
Just one escrow company. It's like multiple different levels, because some of them are our deals, some of them are co-wholesale deals that I've contracted with other co-wholesalers or other wholesalers. I mean, on top of that, then it's sometimes I'm out and about with the general contractors, like, looking at the properties.
I'm buying in Oklahoma City, right? Which we talked about. So like yesterday, I think you had to go drive 2 properties and video them for me. Right? Because they were in an area our company that we usually hire couldn't go. So you're doing that, right? You're working with the contractors, you're getting the bids for the contractors. I tasked you with, reaching out to property management companies, contractors. I mean, literally kind of the definition of what a COO does. The only reason why you probably wouldn't have that title yet is because you need a team to be so. So we need you to hire, and then you're in charge of hiring, which, by the way, my perspective, guys, to give you guys some more training on this, I want to stretch her ability, right? I want to stretch her, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I want her to go create those type of things. So like, I want her to become a leader within the company, and I encourage that, right? Like, I want her to grow. So when I say like the reason why she's not technically the CEO yet, is because I want her to get to a place where she's so busy, she has to hire to replace herself, and she has to create a team around her. And by the way, I give her the autonomy to do that, right? I don't overly train and manage. Is my personality is I'm not a manager, right? I'm a shit manager. I'm a great leader. I'm a great business owner. But when it boils down to management, not my strong suit. So I line her up with the tools that she needs, but then I give her the ability to go create, right? Like I put a tool desk in front of her and say, go build it, right? And she's gonna mess up, and that's okay. And I allow her to mess. Is that a buyer?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, answer that thing. Sell another deal. So I allow her, I put a tool desk together and I allow her to take those tools and go build it. And I know she's gonna mess up and I know she's not gonna do everything right. I get her 90 yards down the field, but that last 10%, she's gotta just go figure it out and she's gonna mess up. And because I know she's gonna mess up, it allows me the opportunity to actually be okay with it and not get all fired up and riled up, because I know, based around how far I got her down the field, that there are going to be chances that things don't go right. And that makes me okay with it. And then it's a learning lesson. Now I get to teach her why that didn't go right, what she should have said, how she should have contracted the deal, how the buyer should have submitted earnest money non-refundable but didn't, when she should have got the contract signed but didn't instead, etc. Right? So that is all going to be okay with me based around my leadership style. As I mentioned previously, it is very hard for people to understand the leadership that it takes to be a good business owner. Being a solopreneur and being the only person in your business, I don't want to say it's easy, but there's no management of other people. There's no leadership of other people. So you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, right? And so, the way I hire is I go off referral first. I've hired very well off Craigslist, but I always go referral first. I always let them know and have full disclosure about everything, where we're at financially, what kind of pay we're looking to pay, how much we want her to do. I was very open that her role was going to be fluid. Like one day she's doing 1, 2, and 3 things. The next day she's doing 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. And now all 5 of those things are part of her responsibility. And so it's amazing how much people want to perform and to execute and do it on a high level. And so my leadership style is very much that, especially with Casey, who has the bandwidth to really take that on, right? Again, why I like to hire from referrals is because her dad is a high level student of mine, right? And so I know her dad, I know the pedigree she comes from. So when he suggests I should maybe hire his daughter, I don't have to overthink, can she handle things, right? I know the pedigree, like I know where she's coming from, and it makes it a whole lot easier for me to put more responsibility onto her plate, such as she's handling all of our buyers for all of our deals in all of our states. As of this week, right now, we just opened up Milwaukee. My cold callers are calling right now in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Guess whose job it is to sell those deals when we contract them? Hers. Guess whose job it is to sell the Oklahoma deals when we contract them? Hers. And Phoenix deals? Hers. Guess whose job it is to continue the relationships with the local investors and agents alike, so we still have our co-wholesale division, which I call inverse profit method? Hers. By the way, she's tasked to create enough deal flow and enough revenue through the inverse profit method that it actually not only just pays her salary, but it pays for all of the operational cost of the entire company. And if she does so, she then just gets bonuses around how many more deals and how much more revenue she actually brings through the door. And I say that to say she is actually, last month, she got a 25% bonus around her salary. So she got her salary plus 25% more. That is very, very rare to see, especially when someone's only been with you for 2 months, right? But I'm able to hire and then pay based around performance. And she has very clear goals. That's the leadership part. The leadership part isn't micromanaging her to death on every little activity that she does. The leadership part is actually giving her clear goals, giving her a path to execute on those goals, and then incentivize them to do it and do it financially. So she got a huge bonus, literally 25% increase from her salary, which jokingly I found out this morning, she was able to, go out and pay for 3 different vacations. So apparently she's living a very nice lifestyle while working here, right? And that's the point, is I want her to. So if I align my goals with her goals aren't necessarily to buy the newest bag. Her goal is she wants to travel. So if I can get her to financially to a point to go do that and still be able to execute and perform at a very high level here with me, then she'll be with me forever, right? And I know it's really early. She's only been here for 2.5 months. But my manager, Anthony, has been with me going on, I think, 7 years, going on 7 years. He's been here 6. So we're going into our 7th year. Like, that's a long time, right? The first person I hired, which was the Casey type, essentially was a personal assistant to start. And she was with me for almost 6 years. Now, here's what I would tell you about this. Hire before you're ready. Don't just hire when you need it, hire before you're ready. Okay. So that takes a little investment. This is why I tell people, do not go out and hire before financially being ready to do so, because you're investing in people. I'm a firm believer of investing in people, not just a cost or expense. My people are everything. I'm a people person. I know that to be true. That is my superhuman power. It is everything I've worked for, and that is why it creates so much success. People can feel that from you, right? Not everyone is a people person, by the way. Okay. So don't try to be me. Be you. Take this training and pull some golden nuggets out of it, right? Right. So most everyone's first question is, how much should I pay somebody? That is totally predicated upon what would be normal in your area and what someone needs. That's where you go into the conversation like I had with Casey and say, hey, how much do you need to pay your bills and live a nice life? Like, not go buy the newest Louis bag, but like live a nice life. And she was transparent and honest with me about what she needed. So I knew whether I was going to be able to afford that when bringing that person on. Now, I knew there was a baseline, right? Like, I knew she wasn't going to say I need $10 an hour, right? So, but if you're hiring for that person, then no, you can afford $10 an hour. And when you have that conversation, say, hey, how much are you looking to earn for this role that I'm hiring for, given that I'm only using you 2 hours a day? Let them tell you. Because if you align that with them and you're open with them and say, hey, there may be opportunity for you to make more, then that will go further down the road, right? And so, don't ask me how much should I pay. It's really, based around who are you hiring and what are you hiring for? If I'm hiring a true just 2 hours a day assistant, $15 an hour is fine. Like, I'm not overly worried about it, right? But to hire someone like Casey that I know is going to continue to grow through the company, and ultimately long-term, the vision I see for her would be a COO and have a team that she's able to manage and hire herself and train herself and recruit herself. And I'm just overseeing her saying, hey, how are your 2 new hires? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? That's where I want that hire to go, right? Otherwise, again, what I would suggest for everyone else, I would hire a personal assistant first. Just handle the stuff that I had Casey handle, filling out W-9s, separating spreadsheets, all that kind of like stuff that has to get done, but it's not driving any revenue. Make sure you hire that person. But I would also encourage you to have intentions to bring that person through the ranks over time. And so, Casey, is there anything that you want to let them know, them being business owners? These are all business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, from your perspective before we kind of wrap up this training?
Yeah, I mean, let's see, so many different nuggets of information.
What makes it, and there probably are challenges, but like, what makes this an easy workspace for you? Like, what would you say is important for me to provide you so you feel like it's an easy workspace? Like, what do owners how do they need to treat their employees or give them so that they feel comfortable, so that they can actually be successful at the role that, right? Why don't you give that perspective?
Yeah. So, I mean, even from the very beginning, when I was only doing like 2 hours of really just task-oriented work, Justin and I would communicate weekly or like via phone call at least. And then typically whenever I would like finish something, I would let them know, hey, what do you want me to do next? And it just kept everything kind of rolling. So there was never just a stagnant like time of no information or no comms. That was really important for me. But then also like with Justin, and he kind of touched on this, like he's not on like management, like that's not his forte, which was totally fine for me because I just need to be told to go do something. And then I'm like, yes, laser focus, let's get it done, go do it. I'll figure out whatever needs to happen on the back end, like, or how to do it. I'm not gonna lie, I've never filled out a W-9 before. So they did send me that. Like, I was like, I don't know how to fill this out. So like, I'm reading through the worksheet on how to fill it out. Like, so it was a great learning opportunity for me to come on as an assistant first, because then it gave me a way to just, one, get to know the team and Justin, but also to see how different aspects of the tasks that I was doing played into a larger picture. So yes, W-9s, great. Doesn't sound that exciting. But then seeing like who that went to and, you know, how that was affecting her, and like the process of learning that was really beneficial for me. Splitting lists, that takes forever. But like it let me see what we were doing in terms of volume and like what our goal was. And it just gave me a better insider view looking from the back seat. And that has really helped shape how I operate now in a role that has a much different type of responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that you are providing quite literally as much vision, support, and guidance to your members as much as anything else, because I'm always going to be fully transparent in where I lack. And again, this is very difficult for business owners. You don't want to be not perfect or, you know, whatever the case may be. But I would go into the conversation while hiring, by the way, while interviewing. Hey, I'm looking for someone who's a self-motivator. My downfall is I'm not great at management and oversight daily. Now, for some, that might mean they don't have to execute every day, but also, you know, the results are going to speak for themselves. So I'll be very aware that you're not executing. But with that said, like, just know my fault here is I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm not going to be able to manage that and do all the other things, which some people are going to love that, Casey. And then some people are like, well, how do I know what to do? Right? Like, if you're not going to micromanage me. So make sure you know who you're speaking to, and then make sure you're being very transparent in, what you're hiring for, the vision. I think the big thing is they need to trust that they have a leader that they can depend on. Yeah. And tell me if that's accurate. But like, and again, I'm hiring someone who initially was a personal assistant for 2 hours a day, working part-time, and has moved into full-time and basically is handling the entire company except for sales of leads. Anthony is running that, right? And that's how you can transition into that. So with that said, I mean, I could keep talking about this for quite some time. Anything else you wanted to highlight?
I think it's just important to always, like, I didn't necessarily have a background in real estate. So having that backseat view was really helpful for me. Like, I had an idea, like, yes, my dad was a student of yours, and like, I had sat in on trainings that he was doing. So I had an idea of like who Justin Colby was and what wholesale was and what science of flipping was and all those things. But my degree is in kinesiology. So like, I come from a sports world. I have had to learn this from ground zero.
Yeah, one thing that's a great point I mentioned, I don't even really look at resumes, just so we're clear.
And that's what I was so just dumbfounded by. I was like, you don't even want a resume? I've just submitted like 170 in the last 3 months. Like, right. So.
And it's not because I don't care. It's my style. Like I said, you guys are going to have your style, and you need to have your style. But this is heavily why I hire off a referral, is so that need of like really diving down into all the different experience. I'm not worried about it. I want to know the person. I'm going to hire off who Casey is, not all of her expertise about real estate. I don't care. It's quite literally irrelevant. Now, I do that all across the board. And the reason why I like it is because I have a blank canvas. I get to teach Casey, or anyone for that matter, my way of doing business, not what they previously learned, not what they learned at a different company or the expertise they have from their experience. Literally, I have a blank canvas that I can teach, train, and lead to become successful within the company. And that's really, really important. So I know, like I mentioned before, there are plenty of people who would advise to do this like corporate interview process where, you know, have them send a resume and write up 3 things that aren't on the resume, and then have them do a video that tells them what your favorite food is, and then have them tell you what their 3 favorite books are, and then I'm like, bro, get me on a Zoom call with the person and I'll know within 15 minutes whether I'm going to have another call. But let's speak to that real quick. I do segment it into roughly 2, maybe 3 calls. 15-minute call, longer hour-long call, and then whether, depending upon where the hour-long call goes, I hire them then, and or I'll say, hey, you know, I'm going to circle back with you here in the next coming days with a decision, right? Yeah. And that's how I do it. So any final words for the crew here? Did we sell that deal? Close.
I have to get them an appointment.
Okay. But we did get up to 7. Earlier this morning, we were at 6 closes next week. Now we're at 7.
Yes.
Let's go. And then this would be 8?
Yeah, potentially, yes.
Well, let's go then. All right.
This one will close on the 26th.
So it won't close next week.
No.
Okay.
But in March. So that's close.
I like back to your bonuses, girl.
Exactly. Holla.
Bonus.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on.